if you're using in this way awareness, it's dynamical, it's become practical.
It was very absurd. I was 8 years old.
Your energy.
Certain different functions, different levels in ourselves.
I'm telling you today about the Art of Conscious Change method or methodology and how I have used it to release some of the addictions that were really difficult to conquer. I'm starting to tell about food because I can't say all, but a lot of people love food. It's a very nice thing that is in the world. And the other very nice thing are relationships. And from those subjects, I also get to other substances as well. But I start with them because these are those things that obviously alcohol, drugs, the society is saying, and gambling, that they are really bad, you should not be doing it, and so on. But with food and relationships, there's not so much knowledge out. And also there's not enough knowledge maybe how much people suffer from it. So for bystanders, it seems that, oh my God, it's not a problem at all even. What's wrong with you? Just eat less and don't fall in love with everybody. So I will shed some light to that subject, and then I cover also some other substances like also overworking. I have had that, and it's honestly, it's a workaholic is a very right word for that to describe what it is. And then, of course, there's it's not really considered addiction, but some people have really long periods of depression. And what happens with depressions is that if you have had it for long periods of time over the course of your life, starting from younger age and then older age, then at least I also developed certain attachment to this state because I was comfortable with it, I was used with it, I was very passive and very down, of course. But when I started using the Art of Conscious Change technologies to release it, I faced a really big resistance from my system. I realized I don't even want to release it because what depression does is you're off the world, you're very passive, people come to you, you have all the rights not to do anything, you're mostly in bed, and all the joyous and optimistic world seems very like pointless. So it gives a lot of these states of being where you feel you're separate from the world and you have all the right to be separate from the world, and you even somehow justify it, and you don't necessarily blame anybody. But you feel it's certain feeling of self-righteousness also comes with that you have the right for your depression. And I even had a boyfriend once who was also depressed, and he told me that, of course, honey, your depression is deepest. Yours is deeper than mine. So there's even that kind of situation can arise. It's very funny in a way. But of course, that side is not funny when a person is so depressed that they start having really dark thoughts about their life. And what's curious is that the really dark thoughts about the life, I mean, even like suicidal thoughts, when I used these emotion releasing techniques, they went away in 2 days. In 2 days, they went away. And imagine what people usually do when they get to that state. What is the end result of their life? It can be finished. But that was very short, but then the depression side was very long because I had a lot of resistance inside me to release it. Every time I felt that life was not right towards me, or some situations or working situations were not right towards me, I indulged in depression. So it's also some kind of indulgence it can be. But then food and relationships. When, okay, I begin with early age because usually when you're a child, and you are in some sort of situations that you don't enjoy. What I did, I thought I was inventive. I was feeling really bad. I did not want to feel bad. And I started looking for a solution. And I found sweets. So I started eating sweets, and I noticed, and before that I did not even like sugar at all. I was not one of those kids who wanted sweet things, but I was in one of those Soviet Union hospitals. The situation was very absurd. I was 8 years old, and they didn't not have enough space in a general hospital, so they put me in infant section, and I was in the same room with infants. I was sleeping in infant bed, and I also somehow had to take care of those infants who also had pneumonia, lung diseases. And I remember I got really depressed, and I sat by the kitchen table like an old person. I sat down, and there were cookies on the table. And I started eating those cookies, and I was like, oh my God, it works so well. I became completely numb. I didn't feel anything anymore. I was in this kind of haze, and it was very calm, and it went from there. So from 8 years old, I started, before I was very curious in reading. I loved books. I loved all the knowledge. And when I went home from the hospital, I sat down with the book. I started to read, and I discovered that I cannot read until I have not finished the bag of candies. And when I finished the bag of candies, I was not interested in reading at all anymore. And somehow as a child, I realized that my life changed. Before that, I used to be very inspired. Nature was very alive for me. When I went outside, I felt like nature was talking to me. And I had all inspirational projects that I was interested about, and I loved going to school. But when I went into that world of sweets, it can be like any other drug, I lost all that. And my life became very blank. It was like boring, routine, and that's the start of the start of addiction. Because anybody who is addicted to something, their only goal is actually to get their substance. That is the only interest. It sounds very bleak, but I just saw a very curious Greek film. It was an art house film, and initially it seemed a very silly film to me. There was one guy who was, the title said he was addicted to other people's consoling him. So he's very down and he has hard life, and other people go, oh my God, you have such tough life, we feel for you and we hug you. So he was addicted to that. And eventually his wife got better. His wife was ill, so he got it through that. His wife was in a hospital, but later wife came back, recovered, and he couldn't get it anymore from. So this film was art house film, so it ended very drastically. This guy started killing his family members to get consoling from other people still. He tried other things. He killed the dog first, but nobody consoled him for the dogs. But that's an art house film. It's not a mainstream film, but it was a super nice portrayal of what are the progressive levels of addiction. Because one level is that you like sweets. You go to food table, you eat your meal, and then you also want sweets. You eat sweets, and then you move on with your life. You do other things. You already have other ideas in your head. But people who get addicted to food or sweets, they cannot leave the table. And when it's not polite to eat anymore at the table, they go and find another table somewhere else. So they keep eating. And it's not only eating, your mind becomes so obsessed and occupied with the subject. And of course, then there is weight gain. Nobody likes the weight gain. And so you end up in this vicious circle of wanting to eat too much, and then having this idea that you cannot eat. Otherwise, whatever obesity or whatever happens to you. And one more thing about wanting. I have read also a lot of papers about addictions. Recently, I was reading research about smoking addiction, nicotine, and it was a very profound, full chemical report of medical doctors, what happens in your brains, how these pathways develop so that you get addicted to these substances that get activated in your brain from smoking. And you know, I was reading it through. I realized, sure, chemical reactions happen, it's for sure. But when you use awareness and you have the technologies of how to release negative emotions that make you addicted to things, then these chemical processes don't affect you in a way that you're a slave to them. It's completely different thing is the chemical processes compared to the force of emotion that is the driving force in addiction. And how is the emotion the driving force? For example, we all know that, we all, like this physical thing that we have, our body. We know that when we use it, when we live our life, it wears out slowly, but still. When we're 6, it's different when we're 66. So it's like we're wearing it out. But emotions, when you use them, they grow. So, for example, if you have desire, and why does this desire come? It's very simple. It's just because you don't want to experience bad things. You don't want to feel disappointed, betrayed, diminished. Maybe you don't want to feel that you're nobody. Or maybe you don't want to feel that when you go out in social atmospheres, you get very excited that you can't even contain yourself. There's a lot of different emotions that we don't experience as comfortable ones, and we just don't want to feel them. That's as simple as that. And then some people discover other things that manage those emotions. Like I discovered sugar when I was a small girl, and it numbed me. Or it's another story when I was in my early 20s. I had my first love of my life, and and then I discovered that he was not faithful, and it was the end of my world. And I remember I just decided. I hope you're not like that, but I decided that, okay, I will become an alcoholic now. And I went to the bar, I ordered huge drink, whiskey with no ice like I've seen in films, and I drank it. And then I didn't even like it, but I really decided that this will now make me feel better. And it went on for a little while, but I never really truly got addicted to alcohol. It was, I guess, then just not completely my thing, but I did use it for quite some time to numb heartache. I was feeling my heart was aching, and this is how I managed with it. So this thing that we don't want to feel bad things. For example, some people, and this is also my story, you know, when somebody comes to you and acts like your boss, even if they're not, and they start suppressing you with their behavior. And that's a mild situation, but it can be even extremer situation than you are in some social function, and somebody really like disturbs you or acts in appropriate way. And we know that people usually react in 3 ways. Some people attack back. Some people start crying. Okay, they kind of give in, and some people just freeze. They can't do anything. These are our primordial behavior patterns from the old ages. So also, again, as a child, I happened to be in some of those situations, and then I decided that surely there must be a way how to manage with it and how to become a winner in this situation. So I don't really remember how I did it, but eventually I got the skill of when somebody comes, I hit back right away, and bigger and louder than I ever got hit. And when I did it as a young girl, I noticed that it works. it scares people off. They pull back. And of course, initially I had to do it. I remember some person approached me at beach when I was a young child, and it was not a very appropriate way of approaching. And some like authority figure in my life also was not acting with me in the nicest way. So I hit back to both of them with this new technology that I invented, and it worked so well. They pulled back and they never did it again. So I was even ready to attack with physical force. And I started using this skill until it mastered. And it mastered to the degree that even when people were not attacking me, it seemed to me that they were attacking me, and I attacked back immediately, of course. And I'm telling you, this has been one of the hardest things to release, because it's like you discover something really great that is working really well, and then you get feedback from other people that it's not okay, it's not working for them, and it's not even reasonable, because it's sometimes very absurd, because these reactions are automatic and it's not responding to reality. Actually, I had something inside me that told me that this is a dangerous situation and I need to attack now. So what happens with emotions is that when you use them, they grow. And they grow to the point that they start mastering you. Like initially you discover these little helpers of yours, and eventually you are their little helper doing what they tell you to do. And most drastic example is perhaps when there was a period in my life when I did not know about the art of conscious change, anything. I was living in New York, and I had really severe food problem. I developed bulimia even, which is maybe you know, eating too much and throwing it out. I also was in, oftenly I fell in love with people who were not available, either emotionally or physically even. So, and then at some point living in New York, I kind of became aware of that, because until then I had lived my life in a way that these things just happened. And yeah, I had bulimia, but I didn't really even consider it to be anything so bad, because it did certain things for me. It was every time I had some really bad situation in my life, I turned to bulimia, and it was always there, always helping, ruining my health, of course, but emotionally it changed my mood. So in New York, I went to, perhaps you've also heard about 12-step program. It's all those Alcoholics Anonymous and Overeaters Anonymous. And I went to that program, and it's a great program. It promises you that if you do everything that the program suggests to do, you will be able to keep your sobriety. Sobriety means that you don't drink ever anymore, you don't eat certain foods ever anymore, you don't call to that person ever anymore or respond to their calls, and so on. They have it for people who are chronically in debt, and people who go to gambling, and people who now I even heard that there's Emotions Anonymous. So they have also discovered that emotions are addictive. I will get to that later. But so I was in that program, I was sober, I was not eating, I was not throwing up food, I was not eating certain foods, I was not in bad relationships, or let's say unhealthy relationship, because nobody's bad, it's just some combinations are not healthy. And I was in a park, and I got this really strong desire to eat this certain thing. And I knew that if I eat this certain thing, it will not be one thing, it will be 50 of those things. And then I'm in a bathroom, and then I've broken my sobriety in that program, which means I need to begin from the beginning. But there are certain ways there how to keep sobriety, and then I noticed. So what was going on? This desire was so strong that it told me, if you don't eat this thing, you will die. That's how strong this emotion was. It was like there's a trigger in your head that says that if you don't do it, you will die. And maybe it makes sense to you now, because sometimes people ask, oh my God, you're such an intelligent person. How come you wasted 8 million euros in casino of government money? How can it be? But this is how it is. You have grown your desire so big that when the moment comes, you have no reasonability left. You have no wisdom left. It's only reactions that are driving your life. You can be very smart in your office. You can be very smart in some councils. You can be the most educated person on earth. But if you have those strong urges inside you, you're helpless. If you don't know what to do with them. And so in that program, they told to refrain, and to refrain to the point where the force of this emotion gradually lessens, and until it's not so strong anymore. And when you are face to face with it, you can not do it, what it tells you to do. So in that park, I was facing these emotions that said, you'll die if you don't do it. I said, okay, it's absurd, although it does feel that I will die. But okay, I will then die. And then when that didn't work, the next set of emotions that were activated inside me were severe depression. I'm so sad, I'm so alone, I'm orphan, nobody loves me. So, you know, where is the sugar addiction coming from? There's something beneath, or any other addiction, there's something beneath that we don't want to feel. Who wants to feel like that? Nobody. Then how can releasing emotions, which is the subject of second course of the Art of Conscious Change, it consists of 5 courses. First one is to learn to orientate in all those inner processes. Basically, physical body is the easiest. We all know that it has anatomy, it has digestive system, metabolism, bone structure, nerve system. So we've learned it at school. The second level is emotional level. We all have felt emotions. We all know they exist, even if science is only getting to it right now and saying, yeah, there's something there that is not physical body. And the third level is thinking processes. We all can imagine, imaginate, we can verbalize things, we can use memory, we can use that part of us. Then there is another part that is called awareness, or when it's in static mode, it's consciousness, but awareness is when you use consciousness awarely. For example, if I use mentality, I can walk here and I don't even notice the trees. For example, I notice the thoughts in my head. Maybe I'm thinking about what I will do in 1 hour. That is when I'm using mental level. But if I'm using awareness, I notice all the things around me, and you are used to doing it anyway, because living in ecological communities, there is no way for you to be there if you don't use awareness, because you're in such like groundbreaking situation. You're facing the new every day, and you need to invent new solutions every day. So you cannot be without it. But just to give a description, awareness is when you notice everything that is in the present moment. And when noticing, if you want to notice something more, you can differentiate, like, oh, this is that tree and this is this tree. And then you notice that something activated in you. Maybe you notice the feeling of hunger. So you're the one who is noticing here. And the 5th level is your true self. That is that part who can use awareness to get the information about anything that you need. Because everything that you need to know is in the present moment. If you sometimes need something from memory, you make like Google search. You you can do it right now. Like you can make Google search, query to your memory, and ask yourself, what did you eat for breakfast? Like, just that as an experiment, you can do it right now. See, what did I have for breakfast? You get instant images, instant information comes out. It's also one ability that we don't consider to be an ability because we're so used to it. But being able to get the information from memory is actually quite an amazing ability. So when you're here in this present moment using awareness, you can use mentality to get the information from memory. You can use verbal part of mentality to talk to other people. You can also use emotions. Like, for example, if I need to walk from there to the schoolhouse, from the small center to big center, and I have 5 minutes, then like this relaxed walk, maybe it's not the best. And then I just activate something more active inside me, like purposefulness, having some purpose. So I purposefully walk there and purposefully walk back, and it's much better than using laziness for that walk. So you yourself can activate emotions, whatever emotions you need. And of course, we all know that we can all use our physical body. We can make it to sit, we can make it to stand up, we can stand on our head and dance and do whatever. What happens when addiction, what is addiction? It's basically something, it's a habit that we ourselves have formed for a certain purpose a long time ago. It did something good to us back then. Now we kept using it for maybe for years and maybe for decades. I used it for 30 years. So when you use it for such a long time, by doing it, you grow that emotion. You grow it so big that eventually emotion dictates you what you should be doing. Now, how to then look at the whole cycle of it? Usually when there is a talk about addictions, only that part is concentrated when the person who has addiction is actively practicing his addiction. He's actively drinking, he's actively drugging, or actively overeating. Some people, you know, overeaters, they eat for long periods excessively, then they diet. Then they eat excessively, then they try to diet. Eventually, you don't have any emotional willpower left, like I did. I had no willpower left to diet again anymore. So that was a very dark spot, because I realized that if I don't find something that releases me from it, I will probably not even have a very long life, because these things, it's no joke. These things for health, they are not partners, not good partners. So usually is addressed this very active part of addiction, but the cycle, and that is called cycle, when person is actively practicing their addiction. What really cycle is much, much bigger. And now I have had some courses of people who have food addictions, who have even these smartphone advice addictions, and some alcohol, smoking. So all those people who have that or have ever had that know actually that the cycle is much, much bigger. So let's say this is a cycle of an addictive behavior. Somewhere here you decide that I will be now a good person on Monday. On Monday morning, I stop, let's say I stop smoking. And by the way, I'm not telling that smoking is bad, eating is not bad, relationships are not bad, drinking is not bad, anything in moderation is not bad. But what moderation means? It means that, there are certain occasions in life. What people who are addicted to is that they create their own occasion. They always find a reason to do that thing, always. They don't need any outer occasions. But I say normal person because I really didn't feel normal when I was addicted to all kinds of things. But now I feel normal. So when you're in normal life, sure, I know that white sugar is not the best thing for your body. Sure, I know that alcohol is also sugar, and it has some things for your body. And but as life happens, I go to my mom. It's Mother's Day. She offers me great cake. I eat it. I go to a wedding. There's champagne. I drink it with a couple. There's sometimes I happen to be in a place where there's no healthy food at all, forget about it. So I eat whatever is there. And that was my goal, to become in that kind of normal state where you don't have to avoid anything And you also have no huge desires to get something. I wanted to be in this middle place, that I can be normal, and it's I who decides, based on occasion, not based on some fixed ideas that this is bad, this is good, this is horrible, I will not do that again. And because it can also go to the other extreme, and maybe you have also heard that some people have orthorexia. It's when you are obsessed with eating as correctly as possible. It very much limits your life. You can't go anywhere because people don't have perfect food everywhere. So you go around with your own food all the time. And yeah, if it's something that I also had this period when I was in addiction program, but my desire was to become free from all those limitations and live life freely. So back to the cycle. Anyway, when we are addicted, that we don't have any other solution than to pull ourselves together, because that's what we sometimes do when we want to stop doing it. So we pull ourselves together on, let's say, Sunday evening after whatever, and on Monday morning we start not doing it. Then we don't do it. Then the first incident comes that you really want to do it. You use emotional willpower. Then you go on, another incident comes. You use emotional willpower and you even get some high from it because you feel so strong and you feel so powerful. Then you go on and then something really horrible happens. Really, sorry, pardon my French, but really shitty happens, and you feel you have all the right now to go and do that thing again. You have all the right to do it because life is treating you so badly, and you start smoking. Maybe smoking is not the best example, but let's say it's smoking. So you smoke, and now you smoke. Happily you smoke all this time. And then the effect of this event diminishes. You don't feel that bad anymore. Because whatever happened here, maybe some person did something that is the worst thing to you. Of course, it activated emotions in you, and of course, this person is not to blame, but your experience is that you're feeling horrible. So you don't feel horrible anymore here, because emotions never last. You all know, they come and they go. Not ever any single emotion has lasted forever. So after a certain period, you don't feel that anymore. Then another set of emotions get switched in. You start feeling bad about all this, what you did. That is usually considered a cycle by, like, psychologists. They call this is a cycle of whoever is then addicted, or people who have addictions also, like, said, I was in a cycle. So this is only a part of cycle. So you're here. And now you get depressed and down and low about that you lost it. You had such beautiful progress, and then you lost it here. And then you're depressed about it, but this depression also lasts for so long only. And then this depression is over, and then you feel certainly new surge of power. You feel like new excitement and new determinedness, and you start building up your career as a normal person again. And here you build it all up, and from here you start again not doing it. So there are, here you make effort with emotional willpower. Here you lose it, you let it go. In Estonia, there's this saying that you throw away the drumsticks. Now it's time to throw away the drum as well. Here you lose it, and here you're depressed about losing it. And here you get new inspiration to begin again. So this cycle, as you can see, all consists of emotions only. Sometimes I also thought initially that addiction, the problem with it is these thoughts that come to my head. For instance, when I also lived in Los Angeles, and I really escaped there from my life because I thought if I start anew there, I choose something to do that I really love and I have been wanting to do since my childhood. And I go after my passion and I will have a new occupation. And I went there, everything was very nice, everything worked out really well, but everything that was inside me came along. So I was there, everything was changed in my life except for these things, inner demons, let's call them, they were still inside. So, so I remember walking there, and then I started using more consciousness, because before that I really didn't know why I began those things, why I have those things, why I can't finish those things. I have no idea. And then I started researching. I noticed that I am walking on the street, because one more thing, anybody who's ever been addicted, it seems like you have addiction, non-stop addiction, 24/7, you are addicted all the time. But when you look carefully, you're not addicted all the time. It's only certain periods of life when you feel that. For example, this is your morning, this is your evening. If you're on diet, you have really big urges here. Then you have some work things. You go to work, you have meetings, maybe something is exciting, maybe something is upsetting you. You don't remember about food. Maybe it's only half an hour. But then you're on your own again and you get food thoughts. You get food thoughts, they're really big. Maybe for the rest of the workday you have food thoughts. Anybody who has had them, they are really disturbing. You cannot do anything. You're seemingly working, but you're thinking about food, and you're thinking about where to get food again and what kind of food, how much, and which. It's like it can be called obsession. So here here you have food thoughts. Here you have big ones. Then you take, maybe if you're in a big city, or if you're in a big city, you take subway, certain things happen there, dangerous situations in traffic, you don't have food thoughts, you fight for your life here. And then you get home, and that's huge. Here are like food thoughts like this. So when you see, there are some breaks where you don't have it. And on those breaks, you're not actually addicted, because you have no addiction suppressing your life. So what can be done about it? This cycle consists of different emotions. Now, to people who have come to my courses, unfortunately, I cannot tell them that you leave the courses, you start releasing all those emotions, and the next day after the course, you will never be doing it ever again. In my experience, it was not possible to drop it just like that. So what did I do? I was not probably a very good student, because and I see that from the people who have passed my courses as well. The resistance to release addiction can be quite big. You just don't want to release it. And I learned these techniques from Ingvar, whom you probably already met here, who developed this method first for his yoga students to be able to do yogic practices, because disturbing emotions also disturb that practice, not only living. But I learned the techniques. I thought I really wanted to release those things. I went home, I started practicing, and I kind of released, but I noticed that I released all kinds of other emotions, but not those that made me be stuck with this thing. And I tried really long time. It was a few years, and then eventually Ingvar asked me, "Are you sure you really want to release it? Maybe you don't want it." I said, "How come? What do you mean? I wanted to also be a really good yoga student. What do you mean?" But then I went home and I looked at it and I realized that I really don't want to release it, because it gave me so many things in life. It was like my medicine. And then there was a point where I still was having trouble with it. It's not good for health. And also people who have practiced addictions, their kind of nervous system, or it gets really fragile. You know, you start having conflicts with people, and it's not really nice at all. As you know, conflicts with people is the worst kind of nightmare ever. So I really was in trouble, and there was this one time I was also already living here, and people who come here, they really want to go deep with yoga. So occasionally Ingvar is available to take you further in your practices. But some people are still struggling with not yoga things, but earthly things like I was. And I asked for help, and he told me that, you know, it's your problem. You're on your own. And I was so shocked. I was like, what does he mean? He's not going to help me? And then I realized that secretly I had thought that something really nice will happen in my life on its own, that it will just change on its own. It will change for sure. So I had this, in Estonia, we have this saying that usk, lootus, armastus, it's like faith, hope, love. I had this like, that somehow I will get rid of it. And then I realized that I won't, and nobody is coming to do it for me. Nobody. Nobody will show up. And then I realized I have two ways. Either I go down with it or I change it. And then I realized if I have the techniques, and it said that you can release all negative emotions, why can't we release all? Who is not allowing us to release all negative emotions? It sounds miraculous, and I have definitely not released all my negative emotions. A lot of them are gone, but some are still here. So I took the thing in my own hands, and then it took me 1 year to release this food addiction. And it took 1 year because I had practiced it for 30 years. The habit was so strong. I used this habit for every occasion of life. But after 1 year, I received much more than I had ever expected. First of all, I don't need to diet at all. And I don't need to abstain from eating certain foods at all. It's not inside me to be able to even overeat anymore. I just cannot do it by nature. It's not possible. And then I realized how we human beings, how is it possible? It happened the same for me with overworking tendency, that I always went over the limits. There's a certain natural border in life that's a border of moderation. So when you're addicted to something, you always go over that border. You go over that border so many times that a new border is developed for you, and that last border is life and death. But before that, there's actually a natural border, which is a border of wellness. And I discovered with overworking problem that there is a certain natural border that kind of you sense it when it's enough, and then you stop. And the same thing happened with food, that now when I eat, a certain impulse comes from like intuitively or from the body. It's very faint impulse that says it's enough. And before I didn't even register that impulse. And if I would have registered, I would have not been able to follow it because desires were so much bigger. So what I recommend for people who come to my courses is not to leave the course and become this super person from Monday morning. In my case, it was not possible. But instead, knowing that this cycle probably will happen again, then in whatever part of the cycle you are, you can release emotions. Let's make you now, like right now, an example ride. So you have emotion releasing techniques. These techniques help to release emotions that you feel are active right now, like anger, sadness, whatever emotion that you really feel. They also allow, there's a technique for releasing emotions that you don't feel anymore because you've had it for so long time. This emotion has remained active in your system. You don't see it. Other people sometimes see it when they describe some stranger. Like, let's say there's a new person who moved to the neighborhood and two neighbors are talking and you know this sad-looking man, he went to work in the morning. So this sad-looking man means that he's constantly active, emotion is sadness, but I'm sure he doesn't even notice it. Some people are aggravated all the time. Some people they have a certain restlessness in them. They can't sit. It's like their character. And some people have, they're slightly dissatisfied all the time. They see mistakes everywhere. Everywhere are mistakes. So these are these emotions that have remained constantly active. And there's also a technique for releasing emotions from these parts of physical body that have already developed changes. For example, okay, let's take two examples. First, alcohol and liver. It's very strong on liver. And you can say that, okay, alcohol spoiled it or is spoiling it. But with this technique, you can sit down and you can find out what emotion made that liver ill. So you can release that emotion also. And or with food, yeah.
Explain it again, please. I
didn't
get what you want to say.
Mm-hmm. It's like sometimes addictions have already made changes in physical body. Like, for example, alcohol and liver. We know that people who drink a lot, their liver gets really... So while you can release emotions that make you drink or make you do this thing here when something big happens in your life, I will get to that in a few moments. But there's a technique that you can take a spot in your body that's already injured. And you can, there's a technique to find out what emotion did it. And then there's a technique to release it.
What emotion hurt this?
Created this situation that you even have an ill liver. There's a certain emotion. And if to put two ends together, it's an emotion that made you drink. So in that way. And there is one more technique because one thing that we have also done is we have suppressed a lot of emotions. Because especially if you want to be a nice person and who doesn't want to be a nice person, you don't allow you to say whatever you have in your head at that given moment. So sometimes we see that people, they talk, but they swallow. It seems like they swallow their emotion, but actually they suppress it. And also suppressed emotions can at some point create tensions in the neck. And this really, even illnesses in this area. So there's a technique that helps you to find all those suppressed emotions and release those as well. And one more technique is there. It's how to manage fear. Because sometimes we get fear in very irrational spots. For example, when we go in a dark forest and then we see bear, fear is justified. But when we go to a meeting and we need to talk to somebody whose decision is important to our life, we don't have guts to talk to that person, then that fear is really not rationalized. But we still feel it. So there's a technique, it's said that fear is a very big natural force. It's not even actually an emotion. So how to use the fear to be more smarter. Because I don't know if in your countries you have these sayings, but in Estonia we have saying that fear has large eyes. And what it means is that when you have the fear in your gut or in the stomach area, it's this fundamental fear. You get so bright, so sharp. You hear everything, you see everything. All of a sudden you're so alert. You can, and some people get like superpowers when they have that fear. They can save children from fire and do all kinds of things. So actually what happens at that moment is that you get more awareness to your being than what you're used to using. And then how to use that more awareness without being afraid of fear, but being able to use the fear. So that's also the technique at this course. So equipped with all those techniques, a person goes back to their life. And let's say they do this, that, okay, I will be now a proper person. This first obstacle comes. And it's like, you see, it's a small obstacle. It's not that big one. What they do is they use those techniques. Let's say I describe you. I go about my life. I go to work. I get a small unpleasant email. I feel like, oh, I want candy. But then I'm like, okay, yeah, it's an emotion. Okay, I release it. Oh, it's gone. I don't want candy anymore. Okay, I still want, but I don't really. So that's my experience also. So in my memory, there is that you need to eat candy now because the situation is so bad. So, but that emotion that you release here never comes back. If you don't release it here, you go around those cycles, this activates again, you're again facing the same emotion. But when you release it, that emotion in that situation never activates again. Because when you release an emotion, what happens to it? We all know that there's energy in life. We would not be able to move if there was no energy. Of course, we would prefer peaceful, calm, moderate, nice, pure energy. Yeah, it has no negativities inside it. So it is literally, it's like you're sitting, you're not overly active, like some people can sit, they walk all the time, they do something all the time. And some people, something needs to be done and they can't just stand up. They are like so tired. So moderate energy is that you're sitting calm and you're alert. And then you see something that needs to be done and it's no problem for you to stand up and go do it. We all have those things, but we all have other times also when we are very, in Estonia they call it's vaimne väsimus, it's like mental exhaustion. And then when we are aggravated, we can't sit still. So what emotion is? It is like a distorted form of that pure normal energy. Somehow it is suppressed into us. So if to draw it, it can look like this. Let's say this is the pure form of energy, but for some reason we have these little balls in ourselves, like emotions. And every now and then, some of them activate, and they disturb our life. Sometimes they're very pleasant, like great excitement or love and these things, but sometimes they're not so pleasant at all. So when you release one emotion, this energy, this form stops to be and it gets dissolved back into pure, nice, moderate energy. So we're not killing emotions, we're not chasing them away, releasing means you also kind of liberate the emotion also. You liberate it back to its normal form of whole energy. So, sorry? Life energy, yeah, which is natural, yes.
Could you share a little bit about this technique, how to release an emotion?
In order to explain the techniques, here's the story. Over the course of years, Ingvar has made them so simple. They are unbelievably simple that these techniques could be passed on in 15 minutes. But what happens with people is that they say, what? That's it? It's not possible. So for that, in order to then go home and be able to practice and release all that, you need like 2 days of background information. Why is it possible? Where are they coming from? How did we get them? Where are they going? What happens when this happens? What happens when that happens? So you have the full knowledge about how you are able to do it in such brief time. So that's why there's a 2-day course for that. And even there was, I have not taught for a very long time. I started this March because when I got released from all these regular addictions, I'm still addicted to emotions. I'm telling you, because when I'm feeling sad, I don't like it. And when I'm feeling happy, I do like it. So that's also kind of being addicted to emotions. But I'm not addicted to food, any substances and those kind of things at all anymore. And when that happened, Ingvar gave me license to teach this now to other people who have that. But even I had one lady at the course, she was very good at practicing actually. As soon as she realized what she got, she started practicing nonstop, and she said she just wants to get rid of all the negative emotions. But she told me later that for half of the course she was sitting, and she's a very intellectual, very intelligent lady. She was sitting and she said, it cannot be true that this works. It just cannot be true. It's stupid, silly. Like it cannot be true. So that's why I can't teach you the techniques here. If you want, Ingvar has a 2-day course after conference, and there's a lady who teaches in Germany. Which country are you from? Switzerland. There have been talks about courses in Switzerland as well. If you ever want to get information, I can take your contact. It's possible. But did I answer your question? Yes. So, somewhat.
I know it's very simple.
It's very simple. It's unbelievably simple, but I'm telling you, it's not easy. For you, it is, I'm sure, because those of people who teach now, there's a few more people who teach. I don't know about them. It seems to me that it was not so hard for them. I don't know. But for me, it was not easy because I faced inertia, such great inertia to release it that it's unbelievable. And you know, I was at some ecological gathering a few years ago, and there were really smart people there who were discussing about the very dark future of our world. And they came to the conclusion, we have this one lady who is doing fashion, sustainable fashion, and there was this scientist or this scholar, academic guy who told me, you cannot save the world by making one dress. You know, the world is going to the very end, and why? Because people just don't change their habits. They just don't change them. And about habits, it's also somewhat emotional because all the people, not all the people, but most people know that there are ecological ways of life out there. Products, you can, and they're not as expensive as it's talked. You can switch one simple product to another one, which is same price, but it's much more ecological. And why we don't do it? We just either, we don't want to bother. Some people do it, but some people who are not bad people, their active emotion is indifference. They don't consider themselves to be indifferent, but when they go to food store and buy this detergent for washing, they just, if indifference is active, they don't buy the new one. They buy what they're used to. They just buy the old one. And also, I'm not talking about greed. Everybody knows about greed, about big corporations and so on. That's clear, but if you take that single people, why they sometimes don't switch is that they can even have this thought in their head that it's not my subject. They have never looked at it awarely. They have not used awareness to look, what do you mean it's not your subject? You live on this earth, you consume everything, you have children, they need earth, you'll have grandchildren. What do you mean it's not your subject? You're not interested in it. So we have this like errors in our thinking and emotional system that don't let us do those things, even if we know that we should be doing those things. So that's also kind of, I can draw another circle here if we want to see what doesn't let a regular person to be in ecological mindset. Then they face with certain events in their life where they, for some reason, don't behave in that way. They can even know that it's not good to litter. They have this upbringing, but maybe they have become rebellious. You know, some people become rebels. The parents teach something and then they fight against it and they don't remember that they fought as teenagers and they still carry it around when they're 40. So they have not been able to release this rebellious tendencies, and then when they think that the whole world is mad at them and they don't fit in the world, they just throw this on the floor. And that's it. And that's how it all comes to be. So, so here, when you release this here, this same one will never activate again. It's already back to that pure form. So you will never face that again. So let's say you go on. You get another thing. Something happens in your day. Like you feel your whatever. It can be something really irrational. Your husband doesn't love you anymore. You feel something. And then you also realize, because during the first course, when I said that you learn to differentiate between the 5 different levels of your being, you also learn the technique, and I have heard that during these workshops it has been taught, but if you later want, I can repeat it. You learn the technique how to stay aware in the conditions of regular life, how to use more awareness and not thinking. It's when we are in new situations, new challenges, we use it anyway, because otherwise we would not understand the new situation. But if we are in our routine, making the bed, going to the bathroom, even preparing dinner, making some phone calls, there's no emergency to use it. So that's where we oftentimes slip out of it. And when you are here and you are slipped out of it, you have no chance of noticing that emotion activated. When you keep yourself in awareness purposefully, then you notice that, oh, this sadness activated. And then you can release it. Let's make a small practice so that you can see how emotions are different when you awarely notice of them activating. They're different when they activate when you are unaware. You can please close your eyes if you can, and just notice some things. Notice that you're sitting on a chair, and from sitting there's a certain feeling under there. You feel that your body is sitting on a chair. And now you can take awareness to all the sounds. You hear that there's some sounds from wind, and some talk. Is there faint talk? And notice that you are here and the sounds are in somewhat distance from you. And between you and the sound, there is a distance. So you're here and the sounds are over there. And now you can look at some of your thoughts. You can purposefully ask to activate thoughts on some subject. For example, home. You can start thinking about your home, but think in a way that you are witnessing the thoughts. You are witnessing the pictures that come, that have to do with your home, and you are also witnessing, maybe you overhear or from memory pop out some sentences. Maybe some people are talking, maybe you hear some sentences. So just notice that you're witnessing it. It's like film is running. There are pictures of your home, and you maybe see some people, and you also hear some talk, perhaps. And now stay in that witness mode, and purposefully stay as a witness. Also notice a slight wind is coming in. It's not so hot anymore. But you're here, and all these other phenomena are outside of you, even if they're inside. Now, turn your glance to your torso area, but still be aware that it is you who is observing your torso area. And recall some event where you felt a stronger emotion. don't recall the most horrible event of your life, because we don't want the emotion to become too strong, but call some, maybe it was something from the conference, maybe before you came here, maybe something that happened within 6 months of your life, where you felt something really strongly, and notice it activating. You can even spot your hand. You can put your hand on that location where the emotion is activating, but purposefully be apart from it. Be a witness. Watch the emotion. And now notice, if you don't go along with the emotion, if you are yourself and you don't identify with the emotion, it's a somewhat certain abstract phenomena. It's a tension in your body. It has a certain feeling, but it's more abstract when you are completely inside the emotion and acting by it. Now please let that emotion go and choose some other topic. Purposefully let that emotion go because it's within your powers to not get stuck there. You can do it. And now choose another subject. For example, some childhood, or maybe your children. If you don't have children, choose your own childhood and see something really pleasant there, something to do with them. Also, don't lose yourself. Stay here, stay a witness, but look at that activation that happens inside your body. And again, just notify with your hand where you feel it. Something pleasant to do with your childhood or your kids. And also notice again that it's abstract. It's a certain change in your torso. It's a certain energy, but it doesn't feel so personal. And let that emotion also go. And open your eyes slowly. Come back from the memory and come back to this present moment. How was your experience? Because usually when we get emotional, it's very personal. The emotion takes over. We feel that, that's why we said, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm excited. But how was your experience now? Did it seem more like you are aware that this emotion became active? How was it? Like,
I would say first when I was thinking about the emotion, I was tension.
Mm-hmm.
When I became aware, I was like a release, like a little bit of like relaxation
Mm-hmm.
in the body.
Mm-hmm. But when you got relaxed, the emotion was still there.
Yeah.
But it was not like, yeah, it was not harassing you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's not so personal then anymore. It's a phenomena. It's a natural phenomena. Anybody else?
I just experienced it like from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not really feeling the emotions so strongly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just witnessing, oh, I have this emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was easy to let it go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was like something else came that you recognized is not you. It's different thing from you. But have you had this experience that when it comes, you use awareness, but sometimes emotions can get us, and we forget about the awareness, and we're in it. Have you had that also?
Sure.
Sure, yeah. It's different?
Of course.
Yeah, it's different. So that's the point. When you intentionally use awareness and you, at ecological communities, you have to use it. You're already using it because otherwise you cannot stay there because life is full of challenges and you need to invent new things. So you already have super preparation because if this moment comes and you're aware instantly, before it comes too big, you notice that emotion came, and the smaller it is, the better it is to release it. It's easier. If it grows above your head, then it's, I will get to that also. So let's say you're past those successfully. It means that these things you release, they will never come back. That's why it said that, let's say you used anger for 10,000 times in your life. For example, in the course of your life, you have become angry 10,000 times. Now, it doesn't mean that now you need to use the technique 10,000 times to release all anger in you. When you start releasing, what happens is that like something in your existence realizes that you started releasing emotions now, and it starts helping you. So when you release anger in one situation, sometimes you can feel like a lot of anger got released. It's like they say that when you dedicate yourself, there's even this old saying that when you dedicate yourself to some cause, all universe becomes to help you. But you need to dedicate. Otherwise, this help does not come. So now the big one comes. My experience with people who have strong addictions, it is so big, the desire becomes so big here that it almost needs to be a miracle to be able to release emotion here. So I was not able. And what I did here is that I did the addiction, I did the addictive behavior, but while I was doing it, I started releasing emotions while doing it. And what it means, for example, if it's food for you, you start eating. It's really enjoyable, especially if you're refrained from eating for a long time. You start eating, you put food in your mouth, but you feel really pleasant emotions, because the reason why you're eating is all the pleasant emotions that you feel. And the pleasant emotions are not those emotions that happened in your life. So while eating, you can release positive emotions. Eventually, it does not mean that you can never eat positively again. Food will have its great taste forever. Your body will need food until you live. So nothing happens. You will not lose food from your life, or you will not lose relationships from your life. But what you need to do is in order for the food or relationship or any other substance not to be such a strong ally for you, not such a strong partner for you, you need to release its positive force also. Otherwise, it will remain forever your biggest partner. About relationships, how can they be addictive? It's when you have developed a certain relationship addictions, then there's three kinds, roughly. One is there's sex addiction. Women tend to have more love addiction, fantasizing, love, romance addiction, even with people who they not necessarily even have any relationship with, or they really pursue it. They really pursue it, and it's very tormenting because it's like going against the current. And then the third one is, it's called codependency. It means when you actually become addicted to somebody who is addicted. It means that the person who is addicted is not emotionally available, and somehow you become addicted to that state that you don't get what you need from there, and you get addicted to your own sorrowful state. So I'm sorry, it's just so you're always fighting, trying to rescue in the relationship, you're so good, you're doing everything so good to them, and they're still not good to you, and so it's like hell. But what happens chemically is that then when you have developed it, certain people affect you in a way that you get chemical reactions. Your hands start shaking, or it affects you like alcohol or sugar. So I don't know if I have time to get to the behavioral or chemical part of addiction, maybe not, but just very briefly, you can be addicted to chemical components, but you can be also addicted, but to chemical components, only physical body gets addicted. You don't get emotionally addicted to chemical components, so that's why this is easier to release, much easier. Physical body gets through refraining from your drugs, whatever they are, very easily. It's very short time but the emotional part, getting addicted to certain behaviors and rewards from that behavior, it's much harder to conquer. And I'm mostly talking about that here. So when that happens, it's really hard to, initial phase is really hard to resist the urge because the desire is strong, so strong that you can feel it pulls you to that thing. It pulls with force. You have given such power to that over the course of decades. So here you do it, but you release things that make it pleasant. This also comes afterwards. Although you release it, you're doing something for your life, you still hit the disappointment that it happened. You get disappointed that this thing happened, and then you can release disappointment. You can release feeling that you failed. You can release all those things here. And then you also notice that at a certain point, you start feeling a new power, new surge of inspiration, and it's considered positive, but it is a building material in this cycle. So my recommendation is to also release that. You don't actually need that spot in your life at all. You don't need to have a Monday morning when you decide, or January 1st, where you decide. You can, I recommend you drop it all. You take your life as it is. You go through your life. You learn to release emotions. You release whenever you feel emotions you realize you don't want in your life. But when you want to release a big pattern of behavior, or like for me, you know, I have this, I still have not released all anger. So sometimes I get angry to people, and it needs to be a project. You need to just take this into your focus and treat it as some sort of addiction or cycle, and just watch, like be alert. You already know all those situations where anger activates. I know them. So when I go to that situation, I'm already going carefully. And as soon as I feel that tiny bit of it, I release it. Because when it's that long, I'm at the will of natural forces there. So I don't know what will happen. So the sooner you catch it, the better. And here also, this does not need to be here. And you go about your life, not in a circle way. You're just here, and your life happens anyway. Your life happens anyway. All the events come and they go. So whenever you feel anything that is disturbing you, you can release it. Or with addictions, you approach it, like I said, with anger, you approach it as a project. And you start, it's like detective work. You become like Sherlock Holmes. You start watching what are the weak spots for you. What are the moods? What are the occasions? So you realize that there's not so many of them. They are occurring. They occur regularly, but there's not such a big variety. It's usually when, let's say for me, when I released all that. For me, it was when I felt I failed at some project. I felt like I failed. Then I wanted to eat. It was when I felt heartache, even if I had no reason to feel heartache, but it's just activated absurdly in some occasions. Then I always wanted to eat. When I became angry, I wanted to eat. And when I did not get what I wanted is when I wanted to eat. And also when I had really silly thoughts about life, like life is pointless and what's the point? So there's like 4 or 5 occasions. It's not constant. It's just when these big ones come. And when the big one comes, you do what you can. This is, for me, it was an illusion to be like a student and release everything that I face immediately. I had to go that thing through many times. And what eventually happens is that if you release, now I take different color. If you release something here, you release something here. You can't release that for some reason. It's very strong, okay, this time. But you release something from here. Then this is very bad part. Maybe you agree, whoever knows. It's to feel you're already done so much damage to yourself, and then you have like another sword going in. You feel bad about what you've done. It's horrible state actually. So I was really eager here. And I felt guilty. I thought that if I release it, am I a bad person? Because I should be feeling bad because I did something bad. But I decided, no, I don't want to feel double bad. So here I was really eager that I released easily. And I was very careful when this new wave of hope came, because hope is also emotion. And I released something here also. I did not do that at all anymore. I stopped doing it. It took me 1 year without doing that at all. And I also felt bad person when I was not doing it, because I thought that you have to decide and you have to stick to your decision and be a good person. But I dropped it. I let everything go. So when you start releasing emotions from that cycle, all cycle of addiction, what happens is you will have this kind of circle. That is not a circle anymore. That's something else. So when you have addiction, you are like, you're in a very strong grip. It has you. You have no chance. But when that strong grip is weakened by releasing emotions from that grip, that grip gets looser, 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 until you start realizing that all of a sudden you have choices. Because when you're here, you have no choices. It hits you, you're gone. That's it. But the first moment when you have choices is when you start feeling, because you've released so many emotions from here, you feel that you check your situation, you feel that I actually already ate. And the next meal is like in 3-4 hours. Okay, my stomach is full. I think I'm okay. It seems okay. Body doesn't want any more food. But I feel I really want this thing because I didn't taste this thing there. And that's the only thing I haven't tasted it. I really want it. And then you see with your reason, with your wisdom, because when you're here, you have, in that section, you have no wisdom, because otherwise you would not, if you use wisdom or awareness, you always have choices. If you don't have any choices. And in this situation, you watch, okay, body doesn't want anymore. Next meal is coming, no worries. I want this, but who wants this? What wants this? And then you realize that it's not who you want it. So you release that wanting, and it's gone. And then when it's gone, you may take a bite of it just to taste, and it's done. But if you don't release it, and if you fight against it, also fighting against emotion grows them also. If you start fighting against, their power gets bigger. And another extreme is when you let in, completely let in. So that's why one thing that can be done is releasing emotions from here. And another thing that I strongly recommend, because it seems to be working really well, is when you are presented with options and you can choose the right one. Because sometimes I have tested both versions when I have options. And I'm like, yeah, I can, but I still choose that one that is not healthy for me. For example, when I choose that one, that tendency gets more power, that emotion gets more power. So when you are presented with choices and you choose the smart one, your smarts gets more power. Like that part develops. So that's why choices are so important, but that you already know, I'm sure. Do you have any questions? I'm thinking if there is something that I didn't tell. Okay, I will talk, we have 2 minutes. I talk a little bit about thoughts. This is all has to do with emotions, emotional part. And in order to be able to notice and release those emotions, and also be aware that, okay, it exploded. I'm doing this now. Still stay aware. This is not a nice story, but even when I had bulimia, it activated. I was in bathroom. I was still able to stay aware, although I was under influence of emotions very bigly. You can still stay aware and witness. One more thing, it's good that we have time, that I wanted to explain to you. Okay, when this thing happens here, this big one, and you cannot do anything, you somehow just, the desire is so strong, you can't even begin to release anything from there. What I did is, so it's this section here in that line. What I did here is, it started and I watched the whole process, because usually in this phase it's tendency to close your eyes. You don't want to know anything. And that's how it used to be for me before. I was somewhat aware here. Then I was like, whoa, what is this? And then I was again aware here, a new beginning. So it's a new beginning, big accident, new beginning. So that was my awareness. But when I started watching the whole process, not closing my eyes even here, when it's the nastiest period, I kept my eyes open, and I did it all. But I kept my eyes open throughout the whole process. I'm telling you, if you keep your eyes open 5 times in a row here, it's not possible that you will not start change anything. It's just not possible. You've seen so much. But we usually tend to close, because we want, why we do is we want to plug off, we want to hide from the world, we want to take the blinders down and be in non-consciousness, not be aware, and tired of keeping awareness all the time, and I want some rest from it. So when you don't do it, you purposefully stay alert here, stay aware, then you get so much information about it that you do it 5 times. And it's not possible that you also don't start releasing those emotions here as well. But thoughts. Thoughts are not, they don't have that strength of emotions, because emotion is an activating force. Emotion is the one that makes you go and take it, makes you put it in your mouth, makes you to go to some person. So that's emotion. But thought is a companion. But let's do one more thing together. Please close your eyes. It's easier this way. And think of something, you don't have addictions, but if you have habits or repetitive habits that you don't like, maybe you want to wake up earlier in the morning and you can't, or you want to go to sleep earlier but you can't for some reason. Think about some habit that you want to change. And then, but again, awarely from where you are. Don't become one with this emotion that activates. Remain a witness of this emotion. In the early morning, it can be this supreme laziness. Like it's so comfortable to be in the bed, it's just impossible to wake up. Or in the evening, you get so excited about your projects and writings and whatever, and you can't go to bed. Or you have a tendency to say bad things to other people. Or you have a tendency to not speak up when you have to. Your throat is as if locked. So whatever it is, look at one of your habits, and now imagine that you don't have any emotions connected there. There are no emotions to do with this habit. There's only an idea. There's only a thought that it's a morning and you need to wake up. You want to wake up and you don't have those emotions that glue you to bed. Or it's an evening, you need to go back to bed early, and you don't have this overexcitement emotion that you want to work at night. And notice if there is no emotion, the thought, does it have any power? Can it make you stay up at night? Can it make you stay in bed early in the morning? Can it make you, let's take some example, like some person, you think they said something bad to you and you have this urge to say bad thing back. If you don't have that urge, would the thought that this is a bad person, for example, you have this thought, it's a bad person, would that thought only make you say something back? How is it? If there's no emotion, there's only thought or picture of this thing that you want to do. Does it make you do it? Does it have any force of that kind? What you tell me? It's just a thought. It's like any random thought. It's like trees are green, I want to hit her. But if there's no force, no emotion back there, then it's neutral. It's just information. It's not a nice thought. It's not a nice thought. And the third course teaches how to release thoughts also, because they do actually affect our life in a different manner than emotions. They do affect our life. The time is actually up. If you want, I can tell you about how thoughts affect our life. Or if some of you want just to come and ask me in person, I'm here, what you would prefer.
Tell us.
I tell briefly. It's a little more harder to explain because the thought is more subtle matter. Some of you have attended this the Art of Conscious Change workshops already, so you know that we are multidimensional. You already know that. It's your experience as well. But we have physical body, we have emotions, we have mental part, we have consciousness, and we have real self. Real self is the one who has done all those exercises here, what you did. It is you who conducted all those exercises. So emotions, we know how it affects our life. They come, they shake us, and when we repetitively use them, they become very strong and they start directing our life in some parts completely, like with addictions. But mental part, it's more subtle. We don't feel the energy of mental part, although it's also a matter. Consciousness is the most subtle matter ever. And here it's a paradox. There's no matter, although we can realize, we can feel that we exist. I can feel that I was here when I was 5, I was here when I was 15, I was here when I was 25, probably I'm at 85, if God gives. So we feel that we exist, but there's no material. It's immaterial part. That's why sometimes it's called spiritual part. Consciousness, very subtle material. Still, when you move your awareness around, you check different things, you feel that you're moving something. You're using something that is of very subtle matter. But mental part is also matter. It's not as coarse as emotions, but it is enough matter to organize situations in our life. And what it means is that when there are concepts in our head, these are like set, it's like manifestation, like manifest. You know, sometimes people, some group of people, they write manifest. They say that we are this. This is our world. This is how we see things, and this is our manifest. So concept is also a little bit like manifest. For example, if I say that I always get ill at spring, it's also a manifest. I have put that on the wall, that it always happens. And when I look at my life, I always get ill at spring. It's like, sometimes they talk about manifesting things. So that's what it is. It's such a strong decision. And when such a strong decision is put together from words, between those words, there's some force that keeps them together. That is that energy. And when that manifest is, so to speak, put on the wall, that's exactly what it does in my life. So with addictions, like I said, when you release emotions, you have done the majority of work, 90% of work. But 10% are those manifests that you have in your head. For example, when I was at the addiction recovery program, the 12-step program, you repeat that you're an addict and a recovering addict. but you only repeat it to realize that you are that, you cannot touch these things because you will fall. Because you have not released those emotions. That's why you will fall if you touch those things. But repeating this sentence is a manifestation. So when I started releasing emotion, I also had to release this thought that I'm a recovering addict. And there can be other thoughts as well. Another thing that I had was that if I take one candy, I can't refrain myself, I will eat 70. So it's also a manifestation. This thing, it's when you listen to your thoughts, some thoughts are said with great force. Like this force within that concept is that force that really creates that for you in life. It's a little bit metaphysical talk, but there is this surrounding of ours is benevolent. It gives us almost everything we want. I say I'm so lazy, you're lazy. You got it already. It's here. Please use it. So it answers our prayers, so that's why it's good to release also concepts, and especially release that force from there that keeps it together. So that's the concept part. Yes.
But doesn't this prove how strong cognition is?
It is strong. It proves it. Yeah. It's very strong, and
so
it's.
You wouldn't say thoughts are not strong, but emotions are almost stronger. But thoughts are even very big part.
It's very big part. It's very big part. Yeah, it's even when I look at my life, then emotions are those that make me act in a moment. But concepts are those that create that those moments even occur in my life. So in a way, they are stronger because they create those occasions. But within the occasion, emotion is the strongest because it makes me do it right now. So, yeah. Any other questions? I'm here for a little while if somebody wants to ask anything. But thank you all for coming. Thank you for listening. And thank you. Have a great final day of the conference. We all come to finish it with you. And then I heard that the torch is given to Italy. Next year in Italy. Okay, thank you.